Davidson. I'm the Director of Corporate Sustainability here.
My name is Doug Shero, and I am the Manager of Sustainability at WestRock.
Can you guys tell me the defining characteristics that differ your positions?
Well, I report to Chris, so that makes mine a little different.
The other Chris.
I'm Chris Davidson. Basically, my role is I report to our Chief Sustainability Officer. My role is sort of focused on strategy, policy, metrics, interaction with stakeholders. I work closely with the other members of the sustainability team. We also have a director of fiber sustainability. George's role is really focused on the raw material that's used in about 85% of our packaging, so it's wood fiber. And so his role is focused on working with our mills and the folks who procure fiber for our mills, and then also with the organizations that we work with around certification and responsible procurement for, in particular, wood fiber. So my role is sort of the linkage between the strategy and what our stakeholders are doing, the goals that we're developing to reduce our overall impact.
This is Doug. My role really supports Chris's, so I am responsible for supporting the development of the strategy, putting forth ideas around goals, but more broadly, I'm also responsible for our reporting efforts, so our transparency efforts, and that includes also engaging with our customers, so working with our customers on a day-to-day basis to answer any questions they have, but also really engage to foster partnerships if that's something that both parties are interested in. So that's the piece that kind of differentiates my role a little bit.
And then this is Chris Campolongo. So I have a different reporting structure. But my reporting structure is through the supply chain or procurement organization. And I would say my focus has been historically on human rights. Traditionally, starting out with our suppliers, making sure our suppliers follow a set of guidelines we call the principles of conduct. The last few years, also working with some internal stakeholders on our own facilities. Customers increasingly are more demanding about making sure that we meet the principles that they may set out. So usually the questions that a major customer asks have a continuum. There might be a fiber question, there might be a reporting and transparency question, there might be a question around maybe our asking for an audit, for example. So a lot of collaboration here.
So I'd love to hear more about sort of what you've done in the past. Did you know you wanted to have a green career, and what led you to the position that you're in right now?
This is Chris Davidson. I actually started out as a forester, and my initial intentions were to remain, pretty close to the land, working basically in a field position. That's how I started out. I was a field forester, worked for a company down in Florida. When I started out, I really had no intention of getting into the quote sustainability field. I kind of felt that that's where I was anyway. And just through the course of different opportunities, being willing to take on different roles, and some luck, I've ended up where I am today. But wouldn't say that I specifically wanted to be in sustainability because I'm a little bit older than Doug, and so the quote sustainability field, the way it's been described and defined, has sort of really come into its own in probably the last 10 to 20 years. So when I started out, let's say 30 years ago, it was more about forestry, forest management, being in the paper and packaging industry.
This is Doug. So I think what Chris is trying to get at is that I'm a millennial, so I approach this a little bit differently. I specifically targeted a career in sustainability and specifically targeted companies. So former FWV was a company that I targeted out specifically and looked for a sustainability role within the company.
Yeah, so Chris Campolongo here. Since we're talking about generations, I'm Generation X. And like Chris, I think that there was nothing like there's no green industry or no sustainability. I came to this, I think, also maybe a little differently through a compliance career. I had a business degree in international business concentration for a master's degree, and my thought was I wanted to kind of see the world and get into some international business. Found opportunities in the customs and trade compliance space. I think developing a skill set around compliance led me to, I guess my first real opportunity at this field was with Office Depot back in the early part of the last decade, when retailers were really starting to finally get into the new arena. Anyway, so I kind of learned about it on the job and said, I think I can do this. I think this sounds like a lot of fun, and I can have an impact with our stakeholders and the folks out in the supplier community. So that's how I came to, I guess, now finding myself in sustainability in the green world.
What is it about your jobs that has been meaningful to you? Why have you chose to stay with WestRock? Do you think your job is a green career, and does that make you want to stay in this position? Do you enjoy doing a job in sustainability?
This is Chris Davidson. Definitely yes. As I said, I started out as a forester, and so I wanted to be in the environmental part of the world, if you will. Over the course of my career, as I said, I've always been in the paper and packaging industry, but over the last 10 years, it's been more of a corporate role, and specifically more of a corporate role around sustainability, around certification, around forest resource issues. I personally find it very rewarding, something that I think I can be proud of. It's, I have a 23-year-old daughter, and so she's very I think proud of the fact that I work in an area that she sees as being important in her life, sustainability and making sure that companies act responsibly. So for me, that's a pretty important part of what I do. I enjoy the job. I enjoy the challenges of the job. I enjoy the people I work with. The sustainability community, I think, is a very open community. We're all working towards the same type of thing, whether we're in different industries or not. So for me, that's pretty important.
Hey, this is Doug. Some of the things that I certainly like about the job, it's constantly changing, so I'm learning new stuff all day, every day. I need to be constantly challenged in order to stay engaged, so this kind of role certainly helps me do that. And since it's so fluid and it's fast-moving and there's changes every day, there's not a whole lot of rigidity around it, which is something that I don't deal well with.
Chris Capolongo here. I'll start out by answering the question, why am I still here? For me, and I'll go back, I consider myself really a compliance person ultimately. And the new company has maintained the culture of compliance that the old company had. And I wanted to watch for that really carefully. And the people that were in leadership positions around the compliance area have been elevated to similar positions at WestRock. And so that means a lot. We might have technically been able to get lawyers and find out that a particular activity was perfectly legal, but it didn't pass the sniff test, and we walked away from millions of dollars of business in the instance I'm thinking of. And so that is why I think I continue to stay here, despite the challenges of the merger. What I like best about what I do, and I have a variety of things I do, I still am responsible for trade compliance. I think the working in the human rights space definitely is also the most rewarding. Maybe we're not going to change the world, but if we can make the difference in one person's life in some factory in Vietnam or some factory in some remote part of China, if that person can suddenly start getting paid what they're due or have a better working environment, then we are making a difference in the world. So that's what's satisfying for me.
All three of you mentioned some of the challenges with the job, not including the merger. What are some of the harder parts of your job that you struggle with?
This is Chris Davis. Probably just the volume of work that's out there, the potential volume of different things that we could be involved with. Doug and I, specifically in our jobs, we're very connected to our customers. We spend a lot of time answering questions and just trying to take that deluge of requests and break it down and be efficient while also focusing on the strategic aspects that we have to focus on. That's probably the most challenging part.
Doug, so I would certainly echo that. The volume of questions that we get from customers is certainly a huge challenge. It can drive longer-term items more difficult, so driving a strategy, setting goals, things like that can be difficult to do when you're spending a lot of time just answering customer questions. Another thing that I wouldn't say it's a struggle, but is a challenge that I foresee ahead is engaging employees across our enterprise. We just merged into a large company, so both sides have new operations, new people. So coming together as one culture and getting everybody engaged to actually drive the long-term sustainability strategy could be a challenge, but also an opportunity for us.
Chris Capolongo here. I think that I would echo what Doug had said. Coming together is going to be a challenge. We're going to have folks that agree to disagree sometimes. Looking back, I think that there was a real good comfort level when we were at MWV. We kind of knew what our roles were and the spaces that we were to play in. And now with some of the new leadership we have that's been introduced, they come from with the Rock 10 ideas. And I think we have to just be that much sharper and that more on top of our game. Where maybe in the past, not so much. So more of just being able to articulate our position internally now. I think you heard Chris and Doug talk about articulating our position to our customers, but now I find myself spending a lot more time articulating my position internally, which is it's important, but it can be a distraction from the mission sometimes too.
When you say that you're trying to articulate the position internally, are other people not in the sustainability department not sure what your goals are? What exactly do you have to articulate?
Chris Campbell here again. For me, because I'm not in that sustainability department that Doug and Chris mentioned, and I'm in a department that I think for Rock 10, the equivalent department wasn't necessarily doing the things that I'm doing. So I think that's just a matter of saying, okay, is the work appropriately positioned organizationally? In other words, the work needs to be done, but who should do it? Politics, I guess, is another word that every company has. And when I say articulate my position too, we have new leadership in the field who may appropriately question what is it that I do, and I have to where it wouldn't have been a question before would be when sort of would have the tribal knowledge to know what I did, and so I just have to spend more time when I say articulating the position, saying, okay, this is what I've been working on, this is what I do in a typical day, that sort of thing.
Doug and Chris, you mentioned that you get a lot of questions from customers. What are they asking you about? Are they curious about what your company is doing to be more sustainable? Are they curious about what you've already done?
This is Chris Davis. What are you doing today? What have you done? There are questions about legal compliance, because we are, shipping products around the world, so there may be questions around compliance around product safety. There are questions about our policies are on deforestation. There are questions about our policy on human rights. Questions about our policy on sustainable packaging. What do we think about recycling? What do we think about recycled content? Do we have products that are compostable? Do we have products that are biodegradable? Any particular question you could possibly think about in terms of sustainability of packaging, we probably get asked.
That's definitely true. They run the gamut. They are all over the place. Some additional things that we get asked. We get asked about our climate change policy. We get asked about the carbon footprint of our products. We get asked about the water footprint of our products. So it really is across the board. We also get engaged about joining in partnerships with some customers. So we have some customer partnerships where we work together with our customers to drive sustainable packaging. That's one example. I mean, Chris is right. It's really all over the place. Anything you can think of, we get asked.
Great. And now I'd just like to ask you to brag a little bit. What are some of your accomplishments so far? Like when customers ask you, what have you done to reduce your carbon footprint? What do you say?
Well, the first thing is I sent to our corporate responsibility report. It has the details of the successes we've had. But, what I would say is, if you look at both companies, and you really have to look at both companies to get a picture of where WestRock is today. But both companies in the industry, I think, have made significant improvements in reducing our overall impact. We're an industry that uses a lot of renewable energy. We use renewable biomass energy. We're also a company that uses our internal processes, and we're able to take those internal processes and then create energy from those. If you look at the how paper is made and the pulping liquors that we use, which we're then able to burn for energy. So, the other thing I think I'd like to say that we're improving on is just how we look at employees. How we engage with employees around sustainability. I'd say that we've had some minor successes there, but I think the way the company is looking at it now going forward is that there's a lot of opportunity, and we want to continue that.
This is Doug. Some things that I would add there. I think that we've done a good job recently of realizing that we need to have an actual strategy for how we approach sustainability. Previously, we did a lot of good work. We had sustainability goals around reducing emissions, reducing water use, etc. But goals are not strategy. So we have come to the realization that we need an actual strategy in place. I think forestry is another area that I would highlight that we've done a great job. We know where all of our fiber comes from. We have tracking systems for it. Some other things, I mentioned the partnerships with customers. We have a couple of very unique partnerships with our customers where we are actually working together. It's not just lip service. We are heavily engaged with them, so that is a positive. Another aspect I would highlight, I mentioned that goals aren't strategy, but they're still important. WestRock is planning on having goals for sustainability. We don't know what they are yet. We're still working on figuring them out, but that's another positive aspect that we'll have moving forward.
I read, I think, one of your corporate summaries on some of your goals, and I noticed a lot of the dates for the goals end in 2015, such as fossil fuels being reduced by 25% by 2015, with the baseline being 2010. How close did you come to reducing some of those goals?
We actually met some of those goals, but we're in the process of, as Doug said, we're in the process of revising our goals, and so we'll be moving those goals. Fossil fuel reduction, our energy efficiency, water use, those are all kind of, if you want to use an appropriate term, table stakes in terms of what we're looking at. So those are going to continue to be important for us, and those are going to continue to be goals we'll have. What we'll do is that we will revise the actual goal itself, and we'll revise the target date as well. Later this year or early next year, we'll have some announcements about exactly where those will stand, but you can be sure that we're going to have those.
This is Doug. The only thing that I would add there is Chris mentioned that we met some of them. We didn't meet all of them. And that's where I think some of our learnings came in. I mentioned that goals were good to have, but they're not actually strategy. And I think that's what we realized is that not having an actual strategy behind how we set those goals and how we implement them can lead some of them, I don't want to say fall by the wayside, but just we can struggle to make progress on them. So I think that is something where we, again, have been doing a good job. We realize that now we actually need a strategy that's supported by goals and goals that will help drive the overall strategies.
When you say goal versus strategy, do you mean like, for example, if I were to say a water goal, it would be like we want to reduce the amount of water we use, and then the strategy would be we're going to recycle our water instead of bringing in new water? Is that what you mean, like hammering out those specifics?
Partially, it's more what's your overarching vision and mission for sustainability? What's your guiding mission statement?
If you think about it, Gina, you can look at some companies will put a goal out there that they want to reduce water, but they may not have any understanding of exactly why they want to reduce water or why reducing water is important or even how they're going to reduce water. We've taken a very, I guess you could say, research-oriented approach to our goals going forward. We've done some background research, we did a materiality assessment, and we really asked our stakeholders, okay, what do you think is important for our company? What should we be focused on? And based on that background research, that's how we're developing our strategy going forward. So it's a very science and research-based approach, and that's sort of the strategy that we're talking about.
What do you wish you had known when you had graduated from college, graduate or undergrad?
Chris Davidson again. What I've come to appreciate, and it's something that I learned from my father, which is perseverance. He always told me, don't focus on what's happening right now. Just think about what you want to get to in the future. And so having perseverance, flexibility is also something. Over the course of my career, I've been asked to do many different jobs, some of which I've felt completely confident I could do, others of which I've often wondered, why on earth would they pick me for this? I don't know anything about this particular issue. But just having the flexibility to try new things, perseverance to continue working even when it seems like you're not getting ahead. Intellectual curiosity is something that I think is extremely valuable. You can learn something from everybody, and that is a skill that I've really only mastered probably in the last 10 years. When I was a young person, I certainly didn't believe that, and that's something I think that I really wish I had spent more time listening to the numerous people that I've met over the course of life.
This is Doug. It's okay to fail as long as you learn from it. You're never going to stop learning, no matter what you think. Life doesn't end at college, kind of just the beginning. You're going to learn more and more as you progress through your career, so just be prepared for that.
Chris Campolongo here. I think I probably took the question more literally, thinking about when I got out of undergraduate school, what would I have done differently. I think one thing is I probably would have gone to work for a few years before going to a master's degree. I went straight through. I was at a bit of a disadvantage, I think, because I had all the book knowledge, but I didn't have that 3-4 years of practical experience that a lot of my peers had. Second thing is I love the concept of a gap year. I mean, I don't know if we called it a gap year back then, but I think that if somebody could take a gap year or a gap semester, or it's just something because you'll work for the rest of your life, and so either between graduate and undergraduate or after graduate school, I would say to people, challenge people to try to to do that. The last thought is do something that you most days feel excited about getting up and doing. And a lot of people in the working world are enduring. They don't really enjoy what they do most days. Find something. That'd be my other advice. Find something that really is engaging and exciting and fulfilling.
What kind of skills do you guys use?
And anybody coming out of college, they obviously have to have, a good command of, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, etc. But I think communication and ability to work on teams are two of the most important skills that I can think of. You have to be able to communicate your ideas. You have to be able to work on teams. Everything now that we do is typically on a team basis. So you have to be able to work with different types of people, figure out how to get things done.
I think about this a little bit differently than most people. I would never hire somebody for skills. I would only hire for attitude. I believe that you can teach skills, but you can't teach people to have a good attitude. I guess you can, but it's probably more difficult. Just a willingness to learn, a willingness to continue to learn differently and bring new ideas to the table.
This is Chris Campolago again. What the IQ only gets you so far, but it's the emotional intelligence, things like self-awareness and the ability to get along with others, and simple things like listen more than you speak. Listening is a commodity that's sometimes in short supply. People hear, but they don't listen. Don't take anything personally. Go home and leave it at the office.